Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we have the CEO of Power Nickel, Terry Lynch. Terry's joining us today from PDAC to answer some of our questions about battery materials maker LNF supplying cathodes to Tesla, car makers shifting the demand picture, the supply and demand of nickel. He's also going to give us an update on Power Nickel from the recent optimistic drill results to new partnerships, their motivation to go green, and what to look forward to from Power Nickel over the near term. Hey, Terry, welcome back to The Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Cassandra, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. Here with the beehive of PDAC, and it's good to be back amongst the walking and living and breathing people. So it's cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's dive right into it so you can get back to the show. South Korean battery materials maker LNF signed a $3 billion supply contract with Tesla to supply cathodes until December 2025. How closely are you following this type of news, Terry?
Yeah, I'm actually going to Korea next week for 4 days of meetings with the various battery manufacturers over there. So we're following it quite closely. They're very keen to secure North American nickel supply. So it's really good omen for North American nickel suppliers.
Stellantis is in the news for investing in an Argentinian-based copper miner in the race for battery metals. Do you think that car makers have really shifted the demand picture? And do you think we're going to see more deals like this?
Yeah, I know ourselves that in addition to obviously going to Korea and meeting with the battery folks there, that we're dealing with, a number of, trading companies and now, what I would say would be formerly clients of Inco and Vale and Rio Tinto and Glencore that would be buying nickel from them and then producing nickel powders and nickel anodes and nickel wire. And now they're being instructed by their end user clients, the Department of National Defense, the automotive manufacturers, by the battery manufacturers, saying, guys, you need to tie up nickel supply in order to have contracts with us. So now they're leapfrogging the chain and coming to, developing nickel sulfide mines like Power Nickel and saying, hey, how about we partner with you guys? And, so that's a game changer because the economics that they get are completely different than what we would get. We get LME, which is London Metal Exchange pricing. They get almost triple that, with their product. And they spend to go from a mine that produces LME nickel, which is probably for us somewhere in the 225 million range. It probably would increase cost to maybe 350. So another 125 million budget, triple your economics. So pretty interesting. And we would never do this to build ourselves, but to partner with people of that ilk and build a JV, that's something we consider. And that's what's on the table now with, if you got a strategic metal like North American nickel, you got a seat at the table.
We have to ask you about Trafigura. The commodity trader is taking a $500 million charge to cover losses as a result of what it termed a systematic fraud involving cargoes of nickel that were not really nickel. There seems to be a lot of funny business in the nickel industry over the last couple of years. What does this say about the supply and demand of nickel?
Well, I guess, the two funny businesses would be Trafigura and the debacle at the LME, with the short squeeze. So in those are sort of somewhat examples of the supply chain issues that are happening out there. So, for the LME situation, you had the major Chinese processor of nickel, the guys who consume the most for stainless steel manufacturing, which is 70% of the nickel market. They got offside on their nickel supply agreements based on, I guess, the Ukrainian, Russian war and the destabilized markets. And so that there's shenanigans there, and nobody's really happy about how that got resolved. And I guess the courts will ultimately decide how that works. And then, obviously with Trafigura, I think, hot markets and perhaps some unscrupulous behavior. These things will happen from time to time. Nothing really material in that other than just, some controls that need to be tightened up. some trusts that had to be redefined. So I don't see that as, it's just these things happen from time to time. But the North America, the nickel market is really three markets. It's the Chinese market, it's the European market, it's the North American market. So the Chinese market's in an oversupply of both class 1 and class 2 nickel, primarily because construction has been slow in China because of the COVID scenario. And that's now picking up, but none of the nickel that goes to China ever comes out of China unless it's a finished product. So that's not really a threat to us. And then North America, Europe is sort of a class 1. It's a bit of a deficit. That's the metal that goes in the batteries. Class 2 and recycled nickel, which would be used for stainless. There's certainly adequate supply there, not a oversupply, but sort of tending to be a little bit oversupply. And in North America, it seems to be that class 1 is short and class 2 is sort of in balance. So that's sort of how we see it right now. I mean, for us as a developing junior, it's not really what the nickel price is today. It's what's the nickel price going to be in 4 or 5 years. And it certainly looks that, the nickel price will be, north of here, probably between here and $15. And that'll be tremendously lucrative ground for nickel juniors like Power Nickel.
Okay, so now let's talk about your recent drill results. You published new and complementary results from your Phase 2 drill program at your Nisk project near James Bay. Could you walk us through the results?
Yeah, we've had a few assays out in the last since the new year, I guess. The first one out early in January was a 40-meter hole of about 1.6% nickel and some other complementary holes that were over 1% nickel. And then in the most recent ones out about 10 days ago, there was 10 meters or thereabouts 10.2 of about almost 3% nickel EQ. So some really exceptional grades and widths. So very bullish for the overall deposit. We had a historical result of a resource of 3.1 million tons, about 1.6% nickel EQ. And then we had updated that to about, I guess somewhere between 4 and 5, depending on what price you use for nickel in August. But then we had to pull that 43-101 because the metallurgical numbers were more than 10 years old, and there was a BC Securities rule that you couldn't post it if that was the case. We were unaware of that, and our QP was unaware of it. We were doing the new metallurgical studies anyway, so that'll be completed sort of sometime in Q2, and we'll update our 43-101 in Q3, and we'd expect to go, somewhere in the 8 to 10 million tons range, sort of in the 1.5% nickel EQ. So the importance of that, if we're able to reach those targets, and we're obviously tracking on those targets with those results that we're releasing, is that we would be, deemed by the market to be commercial at that point. That would be enough to build a commercial mine. And certainly that's what industry feels right now. That's why we're having extensive talks with industry. So I feel like we're heading that path. And what's interesting for us is that that's just one pod. Every nickel sulfide mine in the history of the world has always been multiple pod. So we'd expect ours to be multiple pod as well. So somewhere between, 3 or 4 other pods is probably what we'd expect. And it's an ultramafic deposit. So other analogs in Canada were Lynn Lake, 22 million tons, and Voisey's Bay, which is over 50. So our scientists think we'll be somewhere between 20 and 50 million tons. And if we get there, then this will be a $1 billion deal. And today we're, $25, $30 million. So pretty significant investment upside if one is considering investing in nickel.
So based on your optimistic drill results, do you have any plans to ramp up drilling?
Yes, but in the summer, we're basically have fairly, we're focusing right now, probably 85% of our action or so on Nisk main. So it's all about getting this resource updated as much tonnage as possible. So we're focusing on that. We got a very good feel for that deposit, so we know what we're doing there. And then of course the next stage is to find the other pods. So we've got some thoughts on that. We're doing some winter targets that are available to us now, but wouldn't be available until next year. So we're drilling those now. Sort of somewhat, we have IP on them and stuff like that, but we'd like to have more science, and we've got more science coming. We recently announced a deal with Fleet Technologies. They're an Aussie aerospace company, and they have this technology called ambient noise tomography, which is basically, think of it as sonar. It's reflected in the ground, these sonar pulses that they put out of a what looks like almost like a little landmine device that's on your ground, but they spread about 100 meters apart. They pulse the sound wave into the ground, and they capture sound maps coming back. Goes down to 2,000 meters, and what they do is they've already got from us all of our drilling data, the hard science of our current deposit, the current geophysics and whatnot that we've got on it. So they have all this other data. Then they can correlate the sound maps to our actual deposit and give us a 3D visualization of the deposit at depth within 4 days of this being on the site. And that helps us in a number of ways. One, it sort of sees deposit depths, and so maybe there's some additional pieces to the deposit that we could add by artful drilling, so we could get some fairly easy tonnage to increase the resource. Second, it allows us to see if there's a stacked deposit, if there's another deposit under this one. So that would obviously be easier to target. We could go get that because it sees down to 2,000 meters, and then be looking for similar signatures underneath. And then finally, these signatures can then be adapted and look for, we're looking at right now 1 square kilometer of our 45 square kilometer package. So now we'll look at the rest of the 45 square kilometers and hopefully find these other pods. And then, obviously with that and with IP and seismic, and magnetics, we'd then go ahead and have another drill program in the summer. And that's when we'd look probably to add the second drill or third drill and really go after it in terms of ramping this tonnage up.
You announced your Carbon X's carbon credits purchase to offset your 2023 drill program emissions. Could you give us some color on the motivation for Power Nickel to offset carbon emissions?
Yeah, we're just trying to walk the walk. We're really trying to be, the goal would be to be the world's first carbon neutral nickel mine. So right now, to the most part, our carbon footprint is based on drilling. So it obviously made sense for us to neutralize that. So Carbonet's had a great program called Drill Green that enabled us to do that at a reasonable economic cost to us. It was $10,000 or so to offset our drill program. So that made sense for us to make a statement for how we'd like to go forward and build this. We felt it was, we're blessed being in Quebec, being literally across the road from a Hydro-Quebec substation, to have green hydroelectric power to ultimately power this mine. So we think we can really do a number here and create, a fantastically green nickel mine, to obviously sell Class 1 nickel to the electrification industry. So it makes sense from us from a strategic perspective to do that and to, demonstrate it's not just greenwashing, we're actually walking the walk, so to speak.
Okay, so Terry, lastly, what should investors look out for with Power Nickel over the near term?
So I guess, the thing would be to, I go to our website, look at our deck, look at how we compare with other nickel sulfide companies. We're trading at, 10 to 20% of value relative to them. If you believe we're going to get to these numbers that we are basically saying that in our view we're going to get to, then there's going to be revaluation. And that would be, if you're looking to make money, then obviously you'd invest. I think one of the things to look for is, as we're continuing to put out drill releases. So there'll be another one in 4 to 6 weeks, and there'll be another one 4 to 6 weeks after that, and another one 4 to 6 weeks after that. So this is a news story. It's going to keep on coming at you. And at some point in time, as these, drill results get added out, and we post them all so people can model this and come to the same conclusion that we have, that this thing is going to be a mine. And, at some point, that, the market will probably sort of reassess this and re-rate this company and move us up into the, right now we're 30, we certainly will, our peers are sort of 150 million US to 500 million US. That's where we think we belong.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Terry, and giving us the update on Power Nickel.
Great. Thanks for having us. Ciao for now.
To our audience at home, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back again tomorrow with the latest in small cap news coverage, so be sure to stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below so you don't miss us. Bye.